What if I told you there was a way to learn any song you want on the guitar without even picking up a guitar? In today's video, you're going to learn about the 3 ways to memorize music that works for any instrument, how to apply these techniques to your own guitar practice, and how to practice guitar when you're on the go and you don't have a guitar with you. But first, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Troy Serson. It rhymes with person. I've been teaching guitar for over a decade, and this is one of my favorite techniques to teach because it works wonders. Now, if that sounds interesting to you, a quick disclaimer. When I learned these memorization techniques, personally, I thought it was really cool and fascinating and like I'd learned some sort of magic trick. However, the majority of people that I've taught this to have had some sort of mental pushback they've experienced. So before we get through that, let's break down what it means for something to be difficult on the guitar. Personally, I view difficulty and rate of learning as a continuum. If there's a technique that will help you download information into your brain and your hands quickly on the guitar, there's a very good chance that it will require a lot of focus, discipline, and brain power to execute. And that natural desire to move towards pleasure and away from pain is what makes doing these types of tasks feel difficult. But remember that we're trading momentary comfort for lasting efficiency. And if you heard that and thought, I don't know, Troy, I don't think this is right for me, don't worry. I'll cover the tactic that you can use later in this video that's less mentally exhausting. At a high level, there are 3 different ways to memorize music. If you're playing at an intermediate or an advanced level, there's a good chance that you're already doing some of these things. And if you're at the beginner stage, using this information can help you quickly accelerate your progress on the guitar. The first and hardest way to do this is to memorize by ear. This is when from hearing a melody alone, you're able to recreate it with a high level of accuracy on your guitar. And believe it or not, it is possible for most people to learn how to do this, but typically requires some time and dedication to training your ear to recognize pitches, rhythms, and patterns in music, and then studying where they are and how to produce those pitches, rhythms, and patterns on your guitar. The second and less common way is to memorize the music on paper. This is where you study the score, creating a mental image of what the music looks like inside your mind. It sounds like some sort of Jedi mind trick, but there's a very good chance that this is something you're already capable of without any specialized training, which we'll cover in a moment. And the third and most common way to memorize music is through muscle memory. This is the easiest one, and my students will recognize that I call it the brute force method because this muscle memory develops from you playing a piece over and over and over again until you can play it without looking at the score. If you think back to the disclaimer in the continuum of difficulty and efficiency, memorizing by ear is the most difficult but the most efficient because you can hear something and play it just like that. Memorizing the image of the music is less difficult, which is wonderful, but it's also less efficient than learning by ear. And the least efficient, but the easiest of the 3, is muscle memory, since you just sit there playing the song over and over on repeat until you get it. Now, I don't know about you, but if I have the opportunity to get a result faster in exchange for momentary difficulty, I'll usually take it. A lesson that I keep reminding myself is growing pains are inherently painful, so I see this type of momentary discomfort as a sign of growth on the guitar. And if you're enjoying my teaching style and want to be met exactly where you're at, learn your favorite songs without judgment, and have fun learning guitar even when it's challenging, sign up for a trial lesson with me by heading to troyserson.com/sign-up, or clicking the same link in the description of this video. Putting these memorization techniques into practice is one of my favorite things to do. And not because it's enjoyable in the moment, but because it gets you results fast. And seeing that light bulb look in a student's eyes when they unlock something like this on the guitar is one of the things that I live for. So here's what you do. Step 1 is to pick a piece of music you're working on and choose a 2 to 4 measure phrase of the music. Once you've locked onto that, step 2 is to say take 4 minutes, set a timer, and focus on committing the image of these measures to memory. Similar to when you look at a landscape that's beautiful and you want to close your eyes and picture it, you're activating the same part of your brain, but for visualizing the music on the page. One of the things you can do while you're doing this that I find helps a ton is to go through the measures and mark your fingerings onto the score. If you already have fingerings marked in, do your best to create an image of you playing this in your head, where you can see your fingers moving through the chord changes and the melodies flawlessly. And before we continue, it's really important that at this stage you do not pick up your guitar and play it. Just picture yourself playing the passage and picture the image of the music in front of you. Pour all of your attention into this for these 4 minutes. And step 3 is after the timer goes off, try playing it. After this first playthrough, you can check the music to see if you got it. To keep myself more in visualization mode, I like to practice making the shapes on my forearm at this stage while troubleshooting instead of playing it on the guitar. Then I'll take 2 minutes of studying the score and try again. And usually in under 10 minutes, there's a very good chance you'll have this passage fully memorized and playable. If you did this with, say, 2 measures, and the piece you're working on is 32 measures long, and it takes 10 minutes to commit each of those 2 measure sections to memory, you'd have the entire piece completely memorized and playable in 160 minutes, or about 2.5 hours. If you knew you had a guaranteed path to memorizing the piece you're working on in under 3 hours, would you take it? I'm sure you said yes to that last question, but what if you tried this and it was too mentally difficult to sit through in that moment? Is there another way? Fortunately, yes. And here's what you do. Step 1 is the same. Pick the piece of music you're working on and choose a 2 to 4 measure phrase of the music. Step 2 is to map out your fingerings. During this phase, you can use your guitar to plan out those fingerings and make sure they make sense on the fretboard, but don't start playing the notes with your picking hand yet. Just map out the motions. Take as long as you need, but you may consider setting a timer for 2 to 5 minutes just to keep the momentum going. Step 3 is to slowly try playing the passage you just wrote out. This slowness is important because your attention is split between looking at the music and looking at your guitar, so it'll take a little longer to learn the piece this way. Step 4 is to repeat step 3 until your fingers have memorized how to play the passage, and step 5 is to speed up that passage only if you can play the phrase comfortably in step 4. This works just as well as the fast method I explained before, and is less mentally taxing, but it usually takes way longer. The choice is yours which one you do. My only goal here is to make you a better guitarist, and in order for me to do that, I have to show you how to memorize music in a way that you'll actually take action on after watching this video. And speaking of that, let's talk about a bonus way of doing this. When I first learned about what I'm describing in this video, I heard a stat as a teenager that compared to a control group that had to sit down and start sight reading, musicians physically practicing the motions of a piece for a few minutes would get it 28% better on their first go, and musicians visualizing the piece without moving their hands then playing it would get it 22% better than the control group on their first go. I don't have the exact stat on hand to verify with you, but I took the message of it to heart, and it's something that I've always kept in the back of my mind as I've learned new pieces. This visualization technique works surprisingly well when I'm traveling, but I usually just follow these steps when I'm learning new pieces at home, in comfy clothes with my morning coffee. Step 1 is to listen to the entire piece played by someone twice while reading through the music. My goal at this stage is to divide the score up into the overall sections, and smaller phrases in between to give me a clearer idea of what working on it will look like. Step 2 is to pick one of those sections and start to map out the fret hand fingerings. When going through this step, I'll use my forearm as a substitute guitar neck to make the fingerings and see if they feel doable. Then I'll sit there looking at the music and visualize myself playing it. And while I couldn't find the original stat that inspired this technique for me from the 2000s, there is science to back this step up. A 2013 study published in Frontiers of Human Neuroscience found that mentally practicing a piece of music for 7 minutes without being allowed to move the fingers and hands led to a significant reduction in errors when playing that piece of music compared to the control group. In the study, the group physically playing the instrument still did better than the ones just visualizing it, but that visualization step sets the tone for a significant decrease in errors and aids in memorization. And step 4 of how I do this personally is once I've studied the passage, mapped out my fingerings, and imagined myself playing it, I'll sit down and actually start practicing.